Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Wonderful Wednesdays with Wendi. My name is Wendi Wotecki and I am your host this afternoon. I am the Parent Support Connector at Mission Empower. We are a federally granted community parent resource center, one of 33 in the United States, Puerto Rico, and the British Isles. So it is my mission in Erie County to bring to you as much information about supports and services that our county has to offer. I am super excited to have Robin Young from SafeNet Erie here today to talk about their programming and what's going on with them. So welcome, Robin.
Hi, Wendy. Thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be joining you.
Yeah, absolutely. I am luckily or unluckily really unaware of all of the different programming that you have. So can you tell me the broad version first, and then we'll start to piece it out?
Sure. Well, SafeNet serves anyone who's a victim of domestic violence. And by anyone, I truly mean anyone. It could be parents, it could be young teenagers, it could be mothers, fathers, anyone who's a victim of domestic violence. And sometimes saying that we serve everyone is kind of surprising to people, but it's not just for women, unfortunately. Well, or fortunately, it's domestic violence happens to everybody of every age, race, and gender.
Wow. So I know I was really excited to have you on because obviously the situation currently, we are stuck in homes together, we are social distancing together. So I imagine that you've had a huge increase in intakes and people that you're helping.
Yes, it's been really sort of crazy because throughout this whole COVID thing, there would be like 1 week when it would seem like we had a huge increase and then it would slow down and then we'd have another increase and then it would slow down. It was very strange, but now with everybody planning to be green tomorrow, it's been a really busy week. COVID really isolates parents and children, from the outside world, and we all know what kinds of horrible things can happen when you're isolated.
Absolutely. So why doesn't it stop, or why does domestic violence happen, do you think? Why do people hurt their partners and the people that they care about?
Very often people have seen that as a child. They say that children who grow up in abusive homes are 75% more likely to either end up abusing someone or becoming someone who is abused. So very often it's because they grew up seeing it.
And why would I guess my question is, if they've lived it and seen it, you would think that they'd be more likely to stop that cycle. So how can you tell if somebody's affected by it, and how do you help them stop? Or how do you acknowledge or notice, that they are being affected by it?
Honestly, any child who's growing up in it is affected by it in some way. It's just to what degree they're affected by it. There are programs that try to help people who are in abusive situations. Ours, we help the victims. There are programs that are out there for the perpetrators. There's a new program that's going to be starting soon, so I can't really talk about that yet.
Okay.
But it's a local program. For us, a lot of times the best thing is to be away from the situation while everybody's working on themselves, because if the family's undergoing counseling for abuse, sometimes that's one of the most difficult things to do, and things that come out during that isn't always pleasant. So sometimes it's the separation that's needed.
I see. And does SafeNet help with any of that separation?
Yes. So we have a lot of programs. One of our main programs, of course, is counseling and safety planning. And then we have emergency shelter. So we have a 30-day emergency shelter. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody only stays 30 days, but the goal is to have someone there for 30 days and then help them move on to get their own apartment. If they're having some safety issues or they don't have a job and some of those things, they might be working on doing that while they're with us, and it might take longer than 30 days. But the main thing is having them contact SafeNet because we can do safety planning. When parents fight, one of the main things is what happens to the children. You know, we talk a lot about where the children go when a fight occurs. Are they old enough to go to a safe neighbor's house, or do you tell them all to go to one room in the house so they're together in case one of the parents has to get them out in a hurry? There's if children are older, we talk about safety planning, like what do you say to the kids? Maybe you want the kids to call the police. If you have a 14 or 15-year-old, most of them would feel very comfortable calling the police if you told them you wanted them to. And so, we talk to parents about coming up with code words and all kinds of safety stuff like that.
Those are things I would have never even thought of, honestly. So what are the red flags that I'm looking for as a friend to be able to mention your services to them? Like what are the signs and symptoms that would acknowledge or help me see that this is a friend that needs to be, given your information?
That's a great question. If you have a friend maybe whose partner controls how much time she or he spends with you, maybe they control whether they are able to get a job, or they control the money in the relationship, maybe they're always driving them to and from all of their appointments, those types of controlling behaviors. Or if you have a friend that you see regular frequent injuries on their arms or on their legs, or maybe they're wearing long sleeves when it's 80 degrees out to hide something. If you have a friend that's even potentially in the situation, I think it's always better to say something like, hey, is everything okay between you and your partner? Is everything okay at home? And just make it's a really regular kind of thing. Unfortunately, statistically, 1 in 3 females, or 1 in 4 overall, it happens. And people are embarrassed to talk about it, but make it so it's not embarrassing, because it truly can happen to anybody at any time.
I find it interesting that you have that extra one that is, we need to highlight the fact that men can be victims of domestic violence. And
Yes.
I had no idea until I started researching a little bit for our conversation. So as professional members of the community, what can we do to help? Because obviously there has to be something we can do to help you as well, and help these people that are suffering.
I think one of the main things is don't be afraid to say it to someone you're working with. If you have 2 parents together and one parent constantly answers for the other person, or maybe one person seems to be in control of all of the situations and it doesn't seem like it's a joint decision making, somebody who maybe controls all of the children's punishments, somebody who just seems to be in control of everything, where the family goes, who the family talks to. Watch for those kinds of things, and then you almost need to get the parent that you feel might potentially be the victim alone and ask if everything's okay. And just like you would with a friend, you want to make it okay for them to say it. They might not like that you ask in the beginning, because people get embarrassed by it, but the embarrassment doesn't belong on the part of the victim. The embarrassment belongs on the part of the perpetrator. But by asking, you open it up and you sound like you're willing to hear about it. And then, of course, trying to make a referral to SafeNet so we can do safety planning, talk about protection from abuse orders, talk about potential shelter needs. We have so many services that we can offer someone in that situation.
I was also really excited to read and learn that you do free educational programs. So if you were trying to maybe trying to encourage somebody or put the information in front of somebody and not be so direct, maybe as an employer, you can have SafeNet come in and do a training. So what kind of trainings can you do? Because sometimes that's the easiest way if you're an employer and you have concern and you don't want to overstep your boundaries and you're having a hard time encouraging. What kind of trainings do you guys offer?
That's especially important if you're an employer too, because, sometimes when domestic violence is occurring, it doesn't always just stay at home.
Mhm.
But I think having us to come in and do a program is perfect because we talk about domestic violence, 101 kind of stuff, what it looks like, what the red flags are, the jealousy, the control. Because for some people, if it hasn't become physical yet, they might just feel like it's arguing all the time. They don't always see it sometimes until it becomes physical. There have been people that have been killed and it wasn't physical in the beginning. It wasn't physical for a long time even. Um, but abuse is abuse.
Excellent. So anybody can just contact you for that information to do a training?
Yes, they can contact me and then I'll usually refer it to one of our staff or else I'll do it. We all take turns going out and doing these programs. We really like to try to get the word out because it's so easy to not recognize it as domestic violence.
And your email is?
ryoung, that's RYOUNG, at SafeNet Erie, SafeNetErie.org.
Okay, perfect. And let's start to break down a couple more of these services that you do, because I had no idea. There are so many services, and you have a large staff, really, because you have a lot of people that have to help you with all those services, and the work you're doing is phenomenal. So what are some of the things that you can offer somebody that's suffering from domestic violence and comes to you?
So we offer hotline counseling. We offer one-on-one counseling. And what both of those mean is that if somebody thinks that they might be in a situation, they can either just show up at our 1702 French Street. Even during COVID, they can just show up at our location because we're considered an essential service. They can also call us at our hotline number, which is 454-8161. And we'll talk to them about what their situation is and what they're going through. We also offer the emergency shelter that I mentioned before. And we have medical accompaniment, which means that if somebody's at the hospital and the hospital, is supposed to screen for domestic violence, and if they screen positive, then they ask the person if they're willing to talk to somebody from SafeNet. And if they are, then we have medical people on call and we can go out to the hospital and talk to someone. And that's also something else we use in safety planning, because if I'm talking to somebody and they aren't ready to leave, I always advise them, if something happens and you can't get out or your partner won't let you leave, fake an appendicitis, do something to go to the hospital because we can get you from there. They don't ever have to go back if they don't want to.
And that safety planning is essential.
It is because people get, there are perpetrators that don't let their victims leave when they want to. There are perpetrators who have tried to burn the house down. That's why we always talk about where the kids go when there's a fight or when something happens. But anyway, on to our services. We also offer our, let's see, I mentioned our counseling, I mentioned our hotline. We have legal services. Legal services, we assist with protection from abuse orders. And what that basically is a court order from the judge to tell the other person to stay away. But we help do what we call pro se, and then we pay an attorney to represent someone. And by the way, our hotline is 24 hours a day, 365 days. So 4 a.m., you're awake, you can't sleep, and you're wondering why you're fighting all the time with your partner, you can give us a call and we can sort of break it down with you.
Can you do that anonymously, or do they have to give their names?
We can do it anonymously. Now we're going to ask for the name and address and stuff, certain identifying information, because we're responsible to our funders to say we served 200 different people. But if somebody doesn't want to share it, they don't have to. We ask them to pick a unique name and use it every time they call us.
Awesome. And do you also have a text line or no text line?
We don't have a text line yet. We are working on that. There's some programs that we're looking into, but we're just not there with text yet, and it's so difficult. But we do have a Facebook presence, And we try not to give too much information, but we can respond through that. And the only reason that we hesitate with too much information is because if a partner would find those emails or posts or something like that, it could potentially endanger them.
That makes a lot of sense. So what are some other things that you have?
We also offer in-school programs where we go in and talk to teenagers about dating violence. We also go into colleges and talk to young adults about dating violence. Um, especially in colleges, we try to talk to people about not letting people move in because it's so difficult to get them back out of your house. It's not easy. Without actually having people evicted or doing a protection order, you can't just tell somebody to move out sometimes. Um, we also do medical programs for hospital and medical personnel. And basically, we'll go out to any community organization that's willing to listen. So if you're part of a Kiwanis club, or I mean, we've even gone out to the quilting groups. Truly, domestic violence happens to everybody, so we need to tell everybody about it so they can share it with others. That's the only way we're going to be able to stop, these deaths, because even one in Erie County is too much.
I agree. That is amazing. That's great that you can have such a broad reach and age and still talk about it with the younger and the older set, because it does affect everybody. It does. And especially if you're saying it's generational, and you could be affecting hope for an entire family, a generation of family. So what other, is that all the programming? Because that's so much.
Almost. We do have our Transitional Living Center, which is homeless young adults who are pregnant or parenting no more than one child. And that one does not have to be domestic violence. They can just be homeless. But usually there's domestic violence involved. Either they have a background with it or they have a partner who is abusive, but they don't have to be. And of course, we're always looking for volunteers and interns. Like if somebody has a special hobby or skill that they want to come in and share with somebody else, we can always use volunteers. And that's most of our programs. Quite a few, but most of them.
That is a lot. That is a lot going on in your building.
I did forget, sorry, to mention what we do with kids. So with adults, we have the hotline counseling, and we have group counseling for adults where they get together because, when you're in a domestic violence situation, you're very isolated from people that can help. And so we try and help people come together and have a group because you feel like it's only happening to you. But then when you're in a group with, 10 other people and they're saying, oh, this is what happened with my person or my abuser. And you're sitting there saying, oh my goodness, that happened to me too. It's very helpful to be able to learn that. So we have groups for adults and for children. And we also have a children's program. We have different groups like Mom and Me groups and different things that we do with kids while they're staying with us, because our goal is to help build up their self-esteem to prevent future situations like this.
Right, to stop and to end the cycle from moving forward any further. Is there any special way that you can encourage people to reach out when they need to? How do we encourage people to understand that SafeNet is there to help, that they are, obviously you're not blasting their information all over, you aren't doing that, you are keeping their information safe, your job is to keep them safe, you're working on safety plans. How do we encourage people to understand your message and to reach out to you?
I think first, maybe you just share our general information. Hey, there's this place called SafeNet. I've heard that they help. And if they don't reach out, then maybe you do more of a warm handoff kind of thing. Like, do you want me to be there with you when you call? Do you want me to call in and put you on the phone? Do you want me to drop down there? Do you want me to go down there with you? We usually will ask the extra person to, wait in the waiting room. But if they needed you to, we would let you come in. I mean, it's really important because it's not the easiest thing in the world to tell somebody. There's all different types of domestic violence too. When you look at it, there's the emotional, there's the physical, there's sexual, there's financial. There's all of those things play a role in domestic violence, and sometimes it's really hard to share some of that.
Definitely. And so your staff is very well trained, and I am so excited to be able to shout out to our families at Mission Empower that you are open, correct? And
Yes.
you are essential, and you are in your offices, and you are manning your phones, and that you are available basically 100% of the time on that phone line to assist people to get the help that they need, to get out if they need, to have a safety plan if they need. And I am very thankful that we can talk and share this information. So, any last minute words for us about SafeNet?
Just don't be afraid if you think somebody's in an abusive relationship, or, if somebody themselves thinks they're in an abusive relationship, don't be afraid to reach out. We've served everyone from police officers' wives to preachers' wives. I mean, it happens to everybody and can happen anytime. It's not just certain people. I mean, it truly can happen to anyone. And if you want to be confidential, pick a name. Sometimes, since it happens to anybody, it really is, just basic to, call us.
Okay, so let's have those phone numbers one more time.
So our hotline number, the one that's manned 24/7, 365 days a year, even on Christmas, would be the 454-8161.
Okay.
Our Facebook is SafeNet Erie, or SafeNet Erie. We also have a PFAX Facebook. PFAX is the part of SafeNet that does protection from abuse orders. And there's a web presence there too on Facebook if you searched PFAX, PFACS.
Okay.
So feel free to reach out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on today to Wonderful Wednesdays with Wendi. It's been my pleasure to have you come on and share your information. I do believe, not next week, we're having Curtis Jones next week for his round 2 on what race are you in, but I'm looking forward to breaking down these programs a little bit more in the next couple of weeks, and really kind of dive into some youth programming and other programming that you have going on in a little bit more detail. So thank you, Miss Robin. And does anybody have any questions in our viewership over here? Anybody have a question? No, so far Marianne says, thanks everyone, nice community resource. It's a great community resource. I had no idea, and so necessary. I live out in the county, so we have a resource out in the county that I believe maybe.
Yeah, Safe Journey.
Yeah.
We are a sister organization, and we work together on lots of projects and are funded through some of the same organizations.
Yes, but without that, I don't, it's just, today is a little bit different. Our time is different right now, and we have to get this information out because people are suffering. They are, and they don't have to. So I'm so thankful for you coming on and giving us the insight to what you have going on. And I hope that we can pass the information along. And even if we help one more family, we've done our job. All right. Thank you, Miss Robin. And